If the hits the fan, then you want things in your favour, so you tend to go for safer kit. Even if you don't necessarily need to make use of it, it's better to know that if things go badly wrong and you get caught out horrible turbulence or you have a big collapse, that your equipment's going to be the best possible to look after you. So why would you go for a seat boarded harness like the Success 5 rather than a seat boardless harness or a split leg harness, say like the Advanced Progress 3 or the Advanced Easiness 3 or other harnesses like that? Well, that's an interesting question and we'll hear different opinions on it. But in brief, I think the main reason you go for a seat boarded harness is because you're prioritising safety, solidity, you've got the protection of the seat board underneath you, also prioritising an element of control. Due to the seat board you can press on it, you've got more leverage, and you can lean on the seat board to give a finer degree of control. However, I do think that from my experience that the degree of control, it varies a lot between seat boarded harnesses and non-seat boarded harnesses, so there isn't one rule to cover them all. For example, I think there are some seat boarded harnesses that are less weight shifty and guess less feeling and feedback and control than some seat boardless harnesses. So that might surprise you, but just from my experience of testing them, that's definitely the case. But you can say on average seat boarded harnesses tend to have, especially if you're in more extreme situations or doing more extreme maneuvers, doing SIV, doing a safety course where you're collapsing your glider and falling out of the sky on purpose or not or flying in very active air, then the advantage of the seat board, that sort of fine difference in control starts to show itself a bit more. If you're a pilot who enjoys throwing the glider around and doing wagga, well, you can do that with a seat boardless harness, and even pod harnesses and hammock style pod harnesses, I find that you can do that, but it's a little harder, it's not quite as easy, and you need better control to do that. But again, it varies quite a lot between the different harnesses. So if you're doing an SIV course and you're learning new maneuvers and you're pushing your limits, then I do think it's easier to do the SIV, and put it another way, less chance of ending up with twists when you have a standard sit-up seat boarded harness like this. So there's an advantage to that. And a giveaway is that when you look at the very extreme end of things, the acro, so you don't see many, if any, I don't know of any acro pilots who'll do acro with a seat boardless harness. They all go for a seat boarded harness with a strong, quite hefty seat board, and then it's more about having that seat board control with weight shift, and also the position is much more of a sitting upright position. Pal Takats in his Master Acro series, for example, just repeatedly says never learn SIV or new acro maneuvers with a pod harness, always do them with a seat boarded standard sit-up harness, and he always emphasizes to be in a sat upright position rather than a laid back position. And standard open seat boarded harnesses like that are kind of favor that more of that position as well. So therefore they are, from a point of view of safety and stability and dealing with extreme situations and extreme turbulence, then the seat boarded harness with that upright position I think has got an edge in terms of the safety factor and in terms of control. However, let's now talk about the negatives of seat boarded harnesses. So, well, the most obvious negative is that the seat board adds bulk. It makes the harness stiffer, and so you can't squish it down and fold it down as small, so they tend to be a bit on the heavier side. Having said that, some of them, they've got an airbag or a very compressible inflatable protector, they can still go down pretty small. But one of the things is, I'll show you with a seat boarded harness, when you walk around or running around quite a lot, yeah, I'm exaggerating it a bit here, but when you run around you have that, and you definitely notice that it's like banging against the back of your leg. If you have a seat boardless harness, you don't have that. It's definitely on the ground. There's a comfort advantage for seat boardless harnesses, I think. We're not talking about the strap situation. That's another ball game. But yeah, so that's a definite advantage of it. Another potentially negative thing about seat boards is they're quite firm. You know, you've got a seat board there and you sit on it. It's like when you sit on a wall or something like that. At first it feels fine, but after a while, you know, if the seat's too firm, that can be quite uncomfortable. But with the Success 5, I don't find that at all. The only thing to do is to make sure that you adjust correctly. If you're trying to work out which is the right and best equipment for you, we offer the Flybubble match service. It's about getting the right match of pilot and the equipment and getting them together.